Number one is you have to have a safe word. And I know that sounds super weird. I hope my wife's okay with this. Bananas is our safe word.
What's the perfect age to get married? There is no perfect age, but there is a perfect person.
I had a massive financial loss. We never brought the D word up. We never said it out loud, but we both felt it. Who you choose to marry is the number one decision that you will ever make in your lifetime. It's the number one person in your life that will have the greatest impact on your success.
We have 4 kids. Sometimes I joke we have 5 because, I think all men out there, we're all tough and stuff in the world, but and we're the biggest babies,
Welcome to the Lighthouse Brotherhood podcast. We are excited for you to be joining us. And as you can see, I have my co-host and beautiful man over here, Ruslan. And what we're going to talk about today, which we're super excited about, is marriage and family. And the reason we're going to hit on this is that both of us over the last few years have been introduced to some really great frameworks that have helped us be more connected with our wives, be able to make sure as busy entrepreneurs running around, building multiple businesses, that we're still connected with our kids. But also the most important relationship in your household outside of God is your wife. And I know some men listening to this podcast coming in, you may be struggling in this area of life where you're killing it in life, but when you come home, it is not what you were expecting. And maybe you're distant with your wife, or maybe you guys are two boats, kind of traveling separately versus connected. It doesn't mean you have to run businesses together, but we're going to talk about some cool stuff today and maybe some stories and some situations and frameworks and ideas around this topic. So we're excited to have you. Let's have some fun. So Ruslan, you want to take over and get us launched here?
Yeah, I'll go for it. This is one of my favorite, and I think it's the most important topic. I think as men, we try to make it seem like we don't care and marriage is just this thing. And right, when you're talking to the boys, it's, hey, she controls me, all of these, and all that is just noise that the world put out. I think it honestly is the best relationship and the most important relationship I think that God gave us. But yeah, just like frameworks, I think people get into marriage for different reasons. I got into marriage. We started dating at 15 and we got into marriage at 20 because we're like, hey, we've been dating for 5 years, but we're kids. You're 20 years old, you're kids. So for me, a lot of mistakes could happen that way. If you wait, a lot of mistakes could happen. So a lot of people always ask me, hey, what's the perfect age to get married? There is no perfect age. You're never going to be ready. It's like having kids. You're never going to be ready. There's no perfect age, but there is a perfect person. And I think that's the key that everyone should be focused on, is finding that person that's going to be perfect for you in marriage. Frameworks, all of that, the information's out there. We'll share a couple of them, but that person is going to be your most important decision. I think, even talking to everyone, some people go through divorce, get remarried, but you got to find that person that's just going to be, everything for you. So that's how I would start it with.
I love it, man. And I think everything you just said is spot on. Again, drop the mic in the beginning, but the main thing that I think that I've learned over the years, and, when we were younger, Ruslan, I know we were 4 years apart, but we're basically the same, in terms of the same age group, is no one really talked about this. I didn't get coached on, transparently, I didn't get coached on how to find my future wife. No one came in and gave me tips or tricks or ideas. So for the young men watching, we're going to talk to you first, and then we're going to go into guys like us who, you've been married 15 years. You just celebrated 15 years, right?
15 years, yes.
Freaking amazing. And then we're on year 12. In August, we'll be celebrating year 12. And again, we'll get into this, but it's been an awesome journey with our wives, but it's not always been perfect either, and we can share some of those stories too. But it's a partnership. But for the men out there that are listening that aren't married yet, I want to remove the word perfect a little bit, not to correct anything, but I think that sometimes puts a very limiting scenario on it, but because nothing's ever perfect. But I will say that who you choose to marry is the number one decision that you will ever make in your lifetime. and it's the number one person in your life that will have the greatest impact on your success. So for the men out there, again, you might be going, well, okay, I want love, Matt. Yes, you want to find someone you're in love with. You want to have, great sex. I get it. Okay, trust me, we all want that, and that's important. But note that pushing that aside, you're looking for a partner in life that if you do want to have kids, they're going to be a great mother, right? And you want to have a specific conversation before you get married, and we can give you a framework for that. At your church, if you go to your church, typically they're going to have a good questionnaire for you to sit down with. And when I was looking for my future wife, I did not really have a framework or coaching. I just was like, okay, who am I dating? Who do I like? Right? God puts us in people's paths, but again, number one decision you will ever make is your significant other. Okay. And so like Ruslan got married at 20. I have friends who've gotten married at 19, 20, 21, and they're happily married, having great time. Right. And then on the other side, I've had friends who got married in their late 30s, early 40s, and they're doing, so like he said, age doesn't really matter. It's more of, are you guys on the same page? And also note, over time, we're human, right? Our goals are going to change. Things are going to, what we desire is going to change. And this is why what we're going to talk about today is very powerful for you guys that are listening, because again, we're not perfect. We're just two dudes on a podcast right now talking, and we've had some success in our life, but outside of that, we're still improving and trying to be better husbands. And so with all that being said, Ruslan, again, 15 freaking years, dude, like 15 years. Okay. And at least from what I know, I've met Karina, and we're excited. We're coming out to Seattle here in a couple months, and we're going to hang out with the fam, and we're going to go to Mariners Stadium for the first time, which we're excited about. But at least from what I've seen, we've been on a couples retreat together. We're going on another one coming at the end of the year here. And you guys, at least from what I've seen, obviously I know not everything's perfect, but it seems like you guys have a good connection. You know who's wearing what hats in the family, who's doing what with the kids. Like, maybe you could share some insight for some of the guys that are watching that of what you and Karina do, or anything that you want to share around that.
Yeah, no, and kind of like you said, right, there's ups and downs. But for us, I would say we got married and we started learning how to be adults, how to be everything. That was kind of when we started married. But one thing I will touch on, when you're looking for someone, at least for me, having a family was super important. So I think, again, no one taught me how to find or search for a wife. But I would say the biggest thing that if I would go back, and I'm happy I hit it without even attempting. I mean, that was God himself being there. Because at 15 years old, you don't know what you want, right? You're just figuring out life. But when me and Karina met, I was like, man, not only do I want to be with this person, the love, not do only this person inspires me to basically go and do what I want to do. But at the end of the day, this is going to be the mother of my children. And I think that was, I guess, not everyone wants kids, right? But for me, kids were super important. So I think looking at it, even from a standpoint of like, would you want, a lot of the stereotypical is like, do you want to bring her home to meet the parents? It's like, that's a baby step. If you don't want to introduce her to their parents, how in the world are you going to have kids with her? So I think that was my biggest thing. And I'm happy I hit on it, because Karina's an amazing mom. I mean, we have 4 kids. And sometimes I joke we have 5, because, I think all men out there we're all tough and stuff in the world, but man, we're the biggest babies, and going home and just having that as like the constant, everyone runs a business, right? It's the entrepreneur life. You can wake up on a Monday, it's great. Wednesday's terrible. Thursday's amazing. Friday's horrible. Saturday you're going bankrupt. Monday you're have 9 digits in your bank account, right? I mean, it's just a roller coaster of roller coasters. But at home is just a constant flow, constant energy, and Karina sets that for us. So like Matt said, like hats, wearing hats, responsibilities. I feel like the world even made it seem like, being a wife, being a mom is not important. And holy crap, if any men's out there and you guys are sitting there and you stay home with the kids for a weekend, I think you appreciate your wife a lot more that day, So at least that's how it is for me. I work late hours, but I come home kids are, they're in piano, they're in gymnastics, they're in this, and Karina takes them. She's the family Uber driver. I come home, I have my crap that she deals with, right? And it's this perfect flow. And like I said, I wouldn't have it any other way. I really wouldn't. So, I mean, that's my kind of touch on that. And,
Yeah.
man, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Karine is an angel because she puts up with Ruslan. No, I'm just kidding. Ruslan's awesome, but she is. I met her, and her presence in the room, like you can just feel, like you feel more peace, and it's really really cool because I've seen her in action as a mom, and she's amazing, and it's fun, right? It's a blessing that God connected you guys at such a young age, and you've been able to go that path. Like I was talking about my buddy Paul Ruslan, the one that is still Peter Pan syndrome. I think maybe you and I probably have that same attribute. We like to have a lot of fun, and he met his wife. This is a crazy story, but he was like 23 or 24. He met her at the gym, and it was funny because he was at the time not a morning person. Someone bet him that if he can go to the gym for 4 days in a row at 5 a.m. or something. So he went in, she was there. She was a hairstylist, and he found that out, but she declined him. He found out he lives in Kansas. So there's like 8 hair salons. So he went to all 8 of them, found her, basically asked her to go out, and they got engaged 3 months later, married 3 months after that. And they were, she's a couple years older than him, but they've been happily married and have two kids, and like have done really well. And I actually learned a lot from watching them as when I was growing up, because I met him when I was younger. He's only a couple years older than us. I think he's like 8 years older than us. 12 years older than you, 8 years older than me. And it was cool to hear that story, but also see them in action. And they are exactly like, I see you and Karina very similarly, like highly successful entrepreneur, an amazing woman who is not behind you. She's alongside you as a partner, but you guys are wearing different hats in the house. And we, as entrepreneurs, we do it in our businesses, right? We're building our org chart plans. We replace our time, and you nailed it. There's 2 main things that I've seen in the world with women, especially millennial women, is they've been actually sold this bill of goods that are now being proven wrong, which is you need to be this amazing professional. And there's nothing wrong with any women. My wife actually, she continued working. She became an extremely highly successful engineer, has done very well.
She's a badass.
She is a badass, very smart, and multiple 6-figure income, and like very, very awesome. And interesting enough is you can do that. But if you go talk to my wife right now, she's going to tell you, like, she was sold a bill of goods. She's leaving her corporate job here in about 30 days, almost 30 days, which is exciting. And, which is a blessing in our household. And, but she'll tell you that she was sold a bill of goods. Like, it's not that you can't go be successful, women that are listening, or for your wife to go be successful, but men, here's the truth. They should have options. Right. And we'll talk about that later on. Like, Ruslan's been in a great way able to give Karina that option from day one to be able to be be the role that she wanted to be, which, or at least I think that's what she wanted to be. And you guys probably talked it through. But for the men listening, like, if you're young or you're like, fight your ass off to give your wife the option to not work if she doesn't want to, or if she wants to pursue a business herself, or if she does want to work, obviously let her do it. But I've talked to way too many women, and I want to be cautious here. But when they're like, man, I wish I didn't have to work. And they're doing it because right now you need a dual income in most families. And it's very interesting. And there's no judgment to anybody. Again, this is zero judgment on this, but that's the coolest part for that. But on your guys's, so on your end, Ruslan, obviously, met at 15, 20, married at 20. You guys have been together now, married for 15 years, like 20 years together, right? Yeah. So actually more than 50%. Yeah, more than 50% of your life together, right? Maybe you can share, and I don't know if you're comfortable with this, but maybe share how it evolved over time, maybe prior to kids, then with your first few, and then now kind of with the 4 kids growing up in the house and all that, maybe some examples.
Yeah, I think in the beginning when we got married at, I was 20, just turned 20, Karina was 19. It was kind of like what you said, right? The world told us what the world told us, and we were kind of going down. Karina was working, I was working, and that was super important. When we started talking about it prior to getting married was, hey, when we have kids, because we were young, your Karina always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. That was like you know, our dream if we could get it to that. And we basically, when we were 20, we're like, hey, let's give it 5 years before we have kids. So I was 25 when we had Michael. um in that 5 year gap, I would say it was the most changes that happen, right? And I think that's because we were young, right? When you're 20, 21, 23, 25, you as a person are changing. So, right, there was the arguments, things like that. And I honestly, to this day, still believe arguments are great, because that means both people care so much that they want to figure out, right? Like arguing and not changing is terrible, but arguing and when I say arguing, it's more disagreements, um, are, I think, what started shaping what now, 15 years later, what it is. And me and Karina actually even touch on it because we have weekly, date nights. And right now with 4 kids, everyone says like, man, you go out every week. We get takeout and we have a date night at home majority of the time. That's our dates. We have young kids. We have, our oldest is 10, our youngest is almost 2. So we have date nights and just talking about it and kind of looking back. Our anniversary here was about a month and a half ago. We don't know what switched. It was like a godsend thing that it just switched and everything fell into place. It wasn't money, it wasn't anything else, but like the hats fell on the right head, and there was no. It was kind of like mentors, but no one asked to take that on. No one said you have to take this on, but everything just fell into place, and it was like this going back now. So it was honestly like a transformation. And ever since then it was just hard work building on that, because marriage is work. I mean, if someone doesn't think you're gonna get into it, I hate that, when people are like, it's the honeymoon stage. It should be the honeymoon stage for the rest of your life, because it's a constant job, it's a constant work, and it's the best job I think I have. It seems like you want to say something about it.
No, I'm just nodding, man. This is fire,
Yeah.
dude. But like,
Yeah, so go ahead.
now I was just gonna say, like, I'm taking notes over here, and 15 years, like, and you guys are in your mid 30s, like, and it's just really, really cool. And I appreciate it. But no, keep rolling if you got more, because I'll jump in right
Yeah,
after.
no, for sure. So I would say like that has been, like I said, our biggest blessing. That switch that happened ever since we've been working on it. We understand what roles everyone has. Even now, kids coming in, growing up, we understand their roles. We understand the importance of, you know, me being involved, the importance of Karina being involved. Right now, Michael's 10, and it's like, I mean, if you read, the family boardroom, if you read any books on it, he's detaching from the mom, right? And it's like, again, for Karina, it's like, man, it's terrible, but at the same time, it's amazing, because right, sooner or later here, Michael's gonna have his own family. He's gonna be his own dad, and he has to basically start becoming his own self, which is nuts. The life we live in at 10 years old, 11, 12, 13, everyone has a different path. That starts happening where he wants to start becoming a man, and he doesn't know what that means yet, because he's still a kid, but he's starting that, and it's cool to see on that aspect. And again, even talking it over, like I said, with Karina, it's a constant talk. We do, like I said, the date night was our biggest thing, adding that in. We do it on Thursdays. It's late, kids go to sleep, we do it after that. That was a huge thing. We do one-on-one trips now. We do one-on-ones with the kids. And this is all just taking it from, the family boardroom was a huge thing. And Matt recommended it to me when we kind of met and got the book, and we ran with it and applying it. And it's now, looking back, it's so simple. Like there's nothing there that from a standpoint of a dad or a mom you are forced to do. These are like amazing frameworks to start doing. Going out one on one with the kids, having family nights, having, treating the, and this might sometimes comes off bad, but treating the marriage, the family, it is like a business, treating it like you would, it's like it's a business. It's not a business, but it's like it would be, right? We go out with these SOPs for our businesses. We go out with these core values for our businesses, and then we forget at home we're not doing any of those things. So like that's, like I said, it's been a fun journey, and like I said, I wouldn't want to do it for me alone. I wouldn't do it with anyone else. Like it's the best it's the best relationship I think I have because of everything we built together. I mean, it's a constant conversation. So
Dude. Oh my goodness. I'm getting the shivers, man. I freaking love this, dude. And so it's, as you're talking, Ruslan, like, guys, if you're listening, again, 50, we talked about this in our last episode of being mentors, finding mentors, and 15 years together. Like, obviously there's other folks out there been married for 50 years. Ruslan and I, Ruslan specifically and I are in the trenches, right? We have young kids at home. We're going through that season of life where it's crazy. And eventually we're going to be able to be with our wives one-on-one again at some point, right? When the kids get older. And the fact is like all the stuff he just mentioned, the key to that is that when that time happens, right, that you actually want to be like, you want to continue on and you can actually stay together and be quote unquote friends. Right. And obviously love and all the same stuff we talked about earlier, but a lot of folks lose it because they give all their time to the kids. Right. So for men out there listening, what I love what Ruslan just said is his number one key relationship is his wife. And as a father, you got to understand that I am an extremely involved dad, like extremely involved. And I say that not as a pat on the back. It's just my decision. I'm intentional with that. But my wife is my most important relationship because I'll be transparent for me, Ruslan. When kids started coming into the picture, I fell into the trap of actually not being a very intentional husband. And some dads out there might go, well, Matt, we got to take care of the kids. And that's important. But note that your kids are watching you, how you interact with your wife. They're actually watching you as you kiss, like as you hug. I know this sounds strange this morning. This is a weird thing, but my wife and I woke up this morning and we were just in our bedroom. Some people are we allow our kids kind of in and out, obviously, in our bedroom. And our daughter was, she's cuddled last night, woke up, and my wife and I were cuddling, and she's literally, no joke, and this sounds strange, I hope not to people, but she's literally watching us hug each other and smiling ear to ear. You probably see this, Ruslan, with the girls, and Michael probably is like, ooh, Nolan. I know Nolan's like, I don't even want to see this, but for the boys, for the men out there, for the boys like Michael and Nolan, they're actually watching how they should love on their future wife, right? And you're their example of that. And I think that's key. And then one of the things you said that I took and I wrote it down is that, well, actually a ton, it's kind of ridiculous, I can rapid fire here, but is that with Michael, he's starting to come out of the nest a little bit from Mama Bear, right? And I always joke with my wife, I'm like, and both Nolan and Michael are actually, I think 1-2 months apart, so they're almost exact age. In about 3-4 years, both of us are going to wake up, Ruslan, and there's going to be quote unquote another grown man in the family, right? Yeah. Like, and they're going to hit puberty, grow taller and all that. But but you said it. I wanted a mother for my kids, and I just saw this quote the other day. Is how can you tell? And now again, how can you tell if you should marry someone? And this is for women out there too. Is if you were, and this is morbid, but if you were to die, would you be excited that person's going to raise your kids?
Damn.
Right. Like it's crazy. Right. So, and I'm, and Jackie, if you ever watch this, which my wife's amazing, probably won't watch these, but, Ruslan matter. She'll be like, yeah. But just know, like men out there, like that's the easiest way to judge if you want someone to be the mother of your kids. Like if you were to die, would you want them to raise your children, right? And I told my wife this, and the same thing. Like, women out there should be asking that: if I were to die, would I want this man to raise my kids, right?
Yeah.
And I know that sounds weird because we're married and all that, but it's a very true statement. I think society. The last thing I'll say on this, and we'll segue back. But I wrote, you mentioned Michael coming quote unquote like from the nest. In the world we live in, there's really not, in the Western culture, right? There's not a really great, you're now a man, right? Most often men become men through horrible things like getting introduced to pornography, or maybe they meet a girl in high school and she you do some magic stuff and now you're a man, right? But back in the old days and in a lot of tribes, there was a ritual and a manhood. And I know me and Ruslan are trying to figure that out together, what we're going to do with Michael and Nolan. And then obviously Gabe's got some time, but it's one of those things, like, we just don't have it. And that's something that we're passionate around, is like, I didn't know, no one came to me and said, Matt, you're with a magic fairy wand, you're a man now. You just are like, okay. And here's the truth. A lot of men are walking around that aren't men, even in their 40s and 50s, because they never have been deemed a man. Right. So,
Yeah.
So in your case, Ruslan, like, any feedback or anything on that topic?
No, I think you touched on the last part right there, right? It's not an age when you become a man. I mean, it's really not. Every culture, every situation is going to have a different, like you said, it's not a, and you're a man. But I think the most important thing is, with raising kids, with ourselves, is to know that happens. And to me, it should happen in your teens. It should not happen after that, because now you're behind, right? I mean, you're the longer that takes, and again, it shouldn't happen early, like Matt said, right? It's not if you start dating or your first kiss is when you become a man. No, I don't think there's even a framework around when that is, but it's one of those things that yeah, and like I said, just putting that all together, I think it's oh man, I think that's a whole nother subject that can go down even that. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now.
Well, we'll put it on our next, one of our next podcasts, and we'll have to keep a running list of topics, because this is a really important one. Like,
yeah, and again, I think another thing is people should even say what topics do they want to hear about, right? If anyone's listening, what topics are important, because like Matt said, we're two guys that are sitting, talking, figuring out life just like everyone else, and I would love to hear what other people are even thinking. So, we'll put a list together, but if someone's like, hey, you guys should touch on this, we'll do it.
Or any guests or any people you want us to bring on eventually to the podcast. Right now, It's me and Ruslan, but we'll be bringing guests on in the future episodes, and it'll be really, really cool to have experts on some of these topics, right? And so I know we're going to a couples retreat at the end of the year, and we're bringing in the author of the Family Boardroom, or Family Board Meeting. It's funny, I have their book on my desk because I'm just rereading it again, and I'm excited. We talked about in our last episode. No, it's going to be pumped. But we talked about in our last episode, finding mentors. And this book has drastically changed everything for me. And, interesting enough, as I wrote this down, is, Ruslan nailed it specifically, is in our businesses, we have the EOS system, or you have an operating system. And we actually are building the Lighthouse Brotherhood, and we're going to have the Lighthouse operating system, right? We're going to steal the cliche statement, but all of the operating system really is just basic fundamental cadence and agenda, so you can actually win. And one of them is going to be a quarterly meeting with your significant other, your wife or your husband. And, one of the reasons for that, for me at least, it changed literally my entire family situation. And so same thing, like Ruslan said, I had a friend of ours, actually a mutual friend, Alex Duda. He introduced me to these quarterly meetings, who he'd robbed and duplicated it from, I believe, Dan Martell. And we just started taking it, and then we implemented it. And at first, my wife hated, like, when I told her, hey, we're going to do this quarterly meeting, she actually was like, what are you talking about? And she actually hated it. And when I use the word hate, maybe let me take that word, she disliked it. It wasn't a hate. But the first one, so what I did, and it's going to be in my book as well. I'm stealing this, and I'm actually giving a shout out to Jim and Jamie Shields in my book. But the quarterly meeting, I've been posting about it on my Facebook, and this is getting the most likes, most hits. And it's interesting because first two quarterly meetings we did, the first one, my wife didn't know what to expect. So I made it as pain free as possible. So what I mean for that is we actually, and again, budget, time, kids, but we went downtown Chicago. We went to a nice hotel. We actually did a massage, like a full day of massages, and we went to some restaurants, and we made it more of a day date. And then we did 1 hour. That's it. 60 minutes, not 2 hours, not 6 hours. You're not locking yourself in a room for 8 hours, 60 minutes. And we rapid fired, and we went through, financials, which we'll talk about that today with your wife specifically, and something I learned over the last 3 years on money. But financials, we go through our kids' schedules, who's wearing what hats and what roles, who's doing, as specific as who's doing drop off and pickup, right? We're scheduling our next date nights. Like Ruslan said, we do it a little different. We do them twice a month. There's no perfect cadence, but we make sure no matter what, that those are on our schedules and they're non-negotiables. We do not cancel our date nights unless obviously a kid's sick or something. But we, outside of something like that, we do not cancel our date nights. We schedule those. We actually go through our vacations. My wife's a big vacation person. I'll be honest with everyone on here. Every time I see her, she'll, like yesterday, we just planned our Seattle trip. We have a Bahamas trip coming up in like 3 weeks. And she's like, Matt, I got another idea for a vacation. I'm like, honey, and I'm like, listen, you can plan it, but we can't pay for it until August. Okay. Because all of a sudden we're like front loaded, and it's amazing. So we plan out all of our trips for the next quarter. We make sure that we're filling that need as a family, right? So we go through that, and then lastly, this is a big one, and I don't know, Ruslan, if you and Karina do something similar, but this is a hard one, man. Is I at the end, I always ask my wife, hey, based on the last quarter, you could do this weekly or whatever, but based on the last quarter, what can I do differently or better to make you feel more loved and supported or stable? Because a lot of women want stability. And sometimes it's not, she'll be like, hey, I think one time she's like, hey, I need you to clean up after yourself. Right. And I know that sounds stupid, but like Ruslan said earlier, I'm kind of like the third kid in our family, but unfortunately, kids have taken my bad habits. And so, but she's like, hey, if you can clean up after yourself, right? It's something super simple, but now I know. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to focus on this and make sure that I'm not being a slob. Right. Or, I know one time she's just like, listen, you've actually, this sounds really strange. You get to leave the house and take the kids and do all these fun things. And then I'm left at home.
The fun dad.
Yep. They're the fun. Exactly, Ruslan. You get to do all this stuff, but I'm home cleaning, cooking, and I'm doing all the stuff. Like sometimes if you can take that off my plate and let me go be the fun mom, it sounds like you have a relatable story. I'm going to let you jump in.
No, 100%. Well, I think all dads do, right? It's so easy to come and be that hero, right? Like, let's go to arcades, let's go to the park, let's go watch a movie, let's go have fun. And the kids are like, oh, finally, I'm out of the cage. And mom becomes the cage, That's how my kids see it. And honestly, it's a constant conversation because it's unfair. Like, I really do. I mean, I know this is a brotherhood and stuff. Women got dealt a hard card. They want this. They want everyone taken care of. They want to build a life. They want to do everything. They got handed a tough card. And I think us as men, us as husbands, even for everyone that is married, it's, we talked on the Lost podcast about grace. It's like, man, just know how much grace your wife needs, because then you'll actually understand that being a fun dad, only reason you're able to be the fun dad is because everything at home is being taken care of. And I think if you do that, you'll actually realize, don't snap, don't be an a-hole sometimes to your wife when you come home. There's like landing the plane, right? Take 10 minutes before you walk into the house of just sitting down before you walk in. So then when you walk in, you're giving them your best energy. Now you're 6 p.m., 8 p.m. Like, I come home late, and do I always bring that same energy that I have at 7 a.m? Of course not. So I think that's, when going on that, the fun dad, it's too easy. It's literally too easy, especially if you have money, you're high achieving, you have money, you have time. It's too easy to be a fun dad. And don't just buy the toys, the experiences for the kids and not actually be the dad that they need. So that's why I chuckled on it. The fun dad is it's fun. It really is fun.
Yeah, it's funny because I love it because I think that, I think you're right. It's so relatable. What's up, everyone? I wanted to interrupt this conversation real quick. Let's be real. Most men are winning in business and losing everywhere else. No brotherhood, no accountability, no one pushing them to be better. That's exactly why we built the Lighthouse Brotherhood. If you want to learn more, go to lighthousebh.co and join the wait list. We will be gathering soon. Let's get back to the episode. So just for tactics here, so what we've started doing is planning it out, because my initial instinct, and I'm guessing Ruslan, same for you, is I'm sitting there because I can't sit still. Like if anybody follows me on Facebook or Instagram, you'll see in my stories, like, and a lot of my posts are obviously business stuff and so on, but a lot of it is actually my family time. And, we actually plan it out. So like yesterday, my wife was going to take the kids to the pool and I was wrapping up around like 4:00. She's just like, listen, because she just got back from a trip to Florida on Wednesday to see her mom and her dad on her dad's birthday. And she was just tired. And I said, honey, I'll take the kids to the pool. And, we had discussed it in advance. And then she actually was happy, like appreciative. I actually have to tell my wife, honey, taking the kids to the pool, you are not allowed to go clean anything up. You're not allowed to do anything. And the reason I tell her that now, again, does she listen all the time? No, obviously I'm not her boss, but she, the problem is sometimes we'll go do something, and then she'll feel mom guilt. And I'll come back and then I'll be like, oh, how was your relaxation? She's like, I didn't relax. I actually did 4 loads of laundry. I did clean the whole kitchen. The kids left, they did this. And I'm like, dang it, that did not fulfill her. And now it makes me look like the bad scenario. So it's being very intentional with communication and roles. And it's okay, by the way, man, for your wife to be more of the traditional, quote unquote mom, housewife, etc. But I will tell you from personal experience, for the men out there who your wife maybe has to work a full-time job, understand that. Do not put all the pressure on her, because women did get dealt a bad card, because if they're working full time, they still, like my wife, I had to catch myself. She was still doing all the mom stuff and working full time. And to be honest with you, it gave her resentment toward me. So a couple real quick tips for you guys listening, and this will be a good clip farm here. But basically you want to make sure that my rec is once a week minimum. Do something that she doesn't have to ask you to do. So when you walk through the door, it sucks. I don't see the dishes. I'll be transparent. I'm not the cleanest guy in the world, in the sense of like, I actually hate that. But if the dishes are in the sink, I'm gonna go, and it takes 10 minutes. I'm gonna go clean them up, put them in the dishwasher without her having to ask. And truth be told, all of a sudden you're not gonna wake up the next day and everyone's cheering you on. Good job, Matt, for doing it. But if you do this consistently over time, I promise you, your wife's she's gonna notice, your kids are gonna notice, and what's gonna happen, right, is she's gonna actually, have a little bit more of that sexual energy for as well, because she actually now knows you're appreciating her, and now you guys can actually, give what you guys want to each other in that light. And so it's just one of those things that I started doing more and more. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes I do not. Ruslan, you get home, like you said, you get home late. Like the last thing you want to do when you walk through the door is go sweep a floor. But it's one of those things. I'm not saying also you don't have to do this daily, but once a week, keep it simple, stupid. Once a week, right? Just pick something and do it. Or, hey, honey, I'm going to take this off your list this week, right? So that's just one of my feedback points there. But so one thing to segue here is, you said it, Ruslan, like that not only are they at home crushing it with the family, right? They're doing their thing. They're taking care of the kids. They have to be bad cop most of the time. Let's be transparent, right? They're the disciplinarian usually. And obviously men's voices, like anytime I, quote unquote, discipline my kids with, they listen pretty well, which we're blessed on. But because again, reason is that they hear their mom's voice more often. So eventually, and we have to have our wives' backs. Like one of the things we struggled with in the beginning when our kids were young is they would go to mom would say no, and then they would run over to Papa Bear, and dad, I'd be like, yeah, sure, go grab the ice cream cone, right, or whatever. And so now I stop and I slow down. And I say, what did mom say? And if they say no, mom said no, I'm going to say, okay, well, me and mom are teammates and we're partners, and whatever mom said goes here. If I'm going to change it, which by the way, I do sometimes, if I'm going to change it, I actually go to my wife first. I have a conversation, and then we come and we do it as a unified front. And I explain to her, hey, I think this is okay. Let's let them do this. And then we come and we do a unified front. If you're running into that in your household, right, where it's, good cop, bad cop, and sometimes the dad's the bad cop, not like me and Ruslan, I think we have a childlike energy. So we're both like fun kids basically, but sometimes you're the hardcore one in your wife. You need to go talk to your wife and set boundaries with that too. So that way they're not necessarily learning, oh, if I go to dad, which by the way, this could be a challenge when they get older. If I go to dad's always going to be a Debbie Downer, and I'm going to go to mom for everything because she's going to, make it right. And so I don't know, Ruslan, if you have any feedback on that, but that's just a really important topic, I think, as well.
Yeah, no, I think the last thing you even touched on, right? It has to be one front. You're a team. I mean, right? I mean, from a biblical standpoint, two become one. So when you're raising the kids, that has to be a one front. And if there's a disagreement, like Matt just said, hey, instead of bringing it up in front of the kids and undermining each other in front of the kids, you go talk about it, and then you come back with what it is. Because if you start undermining each other right in front of them, then they know, right? I mean, kids are learning. They're like, all I have to do is trigger this in whichever parent it is, and I'm going to get what I want. It's a manipulation, right? And they're going to be aware of it. So I think going what you touched on and having that conversation, and like Matt said, it doesn't always have to be, hey, what mom says goes. Because then the kids are like, okay, all I have to do now is trick mom into it. Dad's always going to say yes. So saying no, even in private to each other, of like, hey, no, you're being way too harsh on the kids, right? Like, hey, in our kind of family, where a lot of times, like if, Karina's overwhelmed or I am overwhelmed, we basically, it's like it's a wrestling match. We tag each other in, and it's like, hey, I need 10 minutes. Because it's a lot of times it's best to walk away, right? A lot of times emotions take over in any thing, and you start going about something. So it's like, hey, if you see either one going, it's like, hey, let me take over. It's just a tag team, right? Someone steps in, calm, collective, gets the kids back on ground. And I think the private conversation / tagging each other in is what really helped us with having the kids know, not only us saying it, but them seeing it, that we are on the same team. That, hey, they can't manipulate one, or like to me, they're going to come and it's like, hey, can I have this? Because you were working late. Like Emma's a genius in our family, she's turning 5, and oh my goodness, like we touched on the last one, kids' personality before around, up to 7 is going to be who they're going to be. And, with AI and everything we put into the kids did it. Actually, Michael took all the kids' pictures, took a picture of him and said, hey, what is Emma going to look at 15? What is she going to, what am I going to look at 15? And just seeing Emma's personality right now, I know that's already, it's done. That is who she's going to be. And she is so good of like, well, I don't get this. Why does Michael get this? Why does Chloe get this? And like us constantly, right? Because she's victimizing herself. And you have to realize that in kids, yes, she's 4. She's going to be 5. I'm not saying put her in boot camp or anything, but you have to start working on those things. So when she becomes 15, 25, she doesn't keep that same personality that she's creating at 5 years old right now. Because from her end, she's coming from a kid, right? It's cute. She's hilarious, but you have to remember they're, especially at a young age. And it's not like, hey, if they're over 7, you're doomed, right? No, that's not what it means, right? They can be at 15. I mean, there's so much work that needs to be done. And just like I said, with Emma, it's like it's seeing it right now. With Chloe, it's her own thing. With Michael, it's this. Gabe is just, he's a sponge. He's walking around. But knowing that we have to make those corrections at the right time and make it when it's kids and have them have cry when they're a kid. Because if they're going to be crying at 25 over this, you failed. And that's the hard part, right? With Matt touched on, when kids leave, you want to hang out with your wife, but you also want your kids, when they leave and become their own family, to want to hang out with you, and you want to hang out with them. Like, no one wants that 25-year-old reaction that should be coming from a 5-year-old. You don't want a 25-year-old acting like a 5-year-old. You also don't want a 5-year-old acting like a 25-year-old. So that's why sometimes we have to tell our kids, your kids. I mean, you touched on a family board, right? You get 18 summers with your kids if you're lucky. And that to me is like, oh man, it stings at the same time, but it's exciting because, in a way they're forced to hang out with you right now because, right, they can't take care of themselves, but you only get 18 summers. You get 18 winters, you get 18 birthdays. Oh man. Yeah. That one hits me hard every time. Because I see Michael. There's only, Nolan, right? At best, we got 8 left. And that's tough. Like, Matt's he's an amazing dad. He's my mentor when it comes to, being a father. And it's tough to say that. Like, hey, you're saying I have 8 summers? That's, yeah. Like, it gets me emotional every time because, oh man.
It's crazy,
I'll
right?
let you take over. I need some water for this one.
Yeah. Well, think about it. You're going to be 43, Ruslan, and your son's going to be, 18. And hopefully, we did, both of us, I'm going to be 47, and, and we're going to have our boys who are now becoming men. Right. And it's going to be really, really cool. And, I know I'm getting the shivers too. We're doing the things, we're doing the things right now to, make sure, but to segue, because you're going to make me cry, dude. But to segue.
One thing I was going to say, like, Lighthouse Brotherhood, and maybe I should be like, oh no, everything's this and macho and TRT. Guys, it's life. Honestly, like, if you can't get emotional about your marriage, your relationship, and your kids, you can't get emotional about God. You're dead inside, and you need to get alive, because that is what you should be emotional about. You shouldn't get emotional in your business. You should make strategic decisions. You should make decisions for the business. You should be emotional when it comes to your kids, because you brought them in here. You better care. Not just be macho, I got a great wife at home, or hey, I hired the best sitter and I hired a tutor for my kids. No, it's you. I'm sorry. It's gonna be you at the end of the day. So, just
freaking love it, dude. Yeah, dude. I love it, man. And I think a lot of men listening can relate, dude. And again, Ruslan nailed it. Like, the Lighthouse Brotherhood that we're building, the whole purpose of it, right, is the light, like becoming the lighthouse, right? Being a light. You're not a tugboat. You're not pulling along your kids. You're literally shining where you're excited for them to go. Same thing as a husband, a father, a leader, all the identities we relate to. And there's some really great men's groups out there, guys, but we're not going to be we're going to punch you in the face. And, that obviously some of you guys need that, but we're going to be, hey, dude, like, let's give you some frameworks and tools, and let's give you some love and show you how to love your family. The segue, though, 2 big things I took from all the things you just mentioned, Ruslan, is number one is, men, back to kind of the marriage with your wife. You actually want to have an argument system. And I know that sounds weird. I need to actually add that into let me just take note of it. So I got to add this into my book. Argument system. We'll title it something better than that, but we'll package it. But basically, what I found is that, I grew up in a household. My mom was the authoritarian. So my mom was she would ground us for stuff, and she was
same here.
You too, right? Disciplinarian.
Man, I'm telling you, I think we were brothers. Yeah. Like, somehow we grew up in the same family, but 2,000 miles away.
Yeah. Well, dude, we talked about this. So I'm a big believer that spirit knows truth. And like, when back to the mentor scenario we talked about in our last episode, like not only mentors sometimes, but me and Ruslan, it sounds funny, we're pairs, but we mentor each other. I learned stuff from him for business and in life and in marriage. And like he said, maybe he learned some stuff from me, but honestly, we're both just sharing. And that's why we're building the Lighthouse Brotherhood, because that's all it is we're sharing our best practices, and you have the decision to make if you want to go implement it and kind of figure out how you're going to fit it into your world. But like he said, like, it's funny, we probably, we have some similarities, but my mom was the authoritarian. We're talking extreme authoritarian mom, like, and she protected us, like I mentioned in my last episode. My dad, on the other hand, he was basically at like 12 years old. He's like, Matt, if you go to jail, dude, I'm going to come get you out. And don't worry, ultimate both my parents give unconditional love, but ultimate unconditional love. We're talking straight up unconditional love. And so unfortunately, that was my two examples. So my biggest weakness is I'm either very similar. Sometimes I'm weak and I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then sometimes I raise my voice and my daughter can't handle it. And so I'm always learning how to balance between the two, where sometimes I'll simply be like, you cannot talk to your mom like that. And it'll like bring her to tears. And it's tough because you're like, I want to make her feel. Then the other side of me kicks in, like the two-faced guy. And I'm like, no, Matt, she's got to learn. And it's not that I'm beating her or anything, obviously, but learning how to kind of balance it. And nothing's perfect, but back to the situation. So there's two things I want to hit on, Ruslan, if you're cool with it. One is the argument kind of strategy. Okay. And then two is really what the father's role is. And because we started with marriage, but now we're talking about kids. And so this is a great mix of everything. But the argument, guys, is you have to have a couple things. Number one is you have to have a safe word. Okay. And I know that sounds super weird, but bananas is our, I hope my wife's okay with this. Bananas is our safe word. Okay. So if like, let's say we start fighting and one of us feels out of control, or we see the other person has kind of got out of control, we just say bananas, and it kind of state shocks us back in. And we realize, okay, maybe we need to take a minute, we need to separate, or we need to kind of do our thing. Or if we're in front of the kids and it's an argument, by the way, I'm actually a believer it's okay to argue sometimes in front of the kids. I'm going to talk about what's not okay. But sometimes if we start getting into, like Ruslan said, undermining each other or whatever the case might be, which no one's perfect. We're humans, right? We're partners. We do it sometimes. Sometimes we wake up on the wrong side of the wrong side of the bed, or, ladies, sometimes it's that, it's that week, right? So what happens is we have that word, but we sometimes get in arguments. It happens quite often. My wife is amazing. We're both fighters in the sense of, in a good way, but it's how you resolve it in front of the kids. We never not resolve something in front of them if they've seen us argue. Okay. So if they see us argue, we always make sure we come back and we actually explain, hey, mommy and daddy, hey guys, we're sorry for yelling at each other in front of you. Here's what we were discussing, and here's the next move from this moment forward. And what we're teaching them is how to resolve arguments. And a lot of families, we were taught, go fight behind closed doors. And again, I'm not saying like fight about everything in front of your kids, but we all been there. I hope maybe I'm the only one where you go off the freaking rails and you start yelling for whatever reason. And then, or you say something stupid to your, like, we've all been there, man. We say something really dumb to our wife and then we wish we could get it back. Right. And so just make sure that you have some sort of argument system in place, and it doesn't have to be a safe word, but that would be the first thing. And then just make sure step two is that if you do argue, it's okay. We're humans. Resolve it in front of them. Like, come back and explain it to them of how you guys resolved it. So any feedback, Ruslan, on that at all?
Yeah. Like you said, right. We started with marriage and now it's about kids, but I do think that is marriage, right? If you're going to have a family, you're going to have, at whatever stage, you're going to have your marriage be, frameworks and stuff that work around the kids. But at the end of the day, if even going back on it, is the showing them that the argument had a resolution. It's finishing that loop, right? You don't want them stuck over here and not having it finished, because then they're making their own assumptions of what happened. Our mom, because right, they're going to school, they're going to that. they hear someone got a divorce or someone's parents are not together, and they're thinking, oh my goodness, mom and dad had this argument about the steak not being, the right temperature. And again, I'm just throwing that in as a joke, but they're in their mind as a kid, they're almost gonna think that, hey, holy crap, my parents are getting a divorce. And or they could be like, oh, this is normal. When I'm gonna find a wife, we're just gonna argue, and that becomes their normal, right? So I think, like you brought it up, it's finishing that loop for them and understanding, like, hey, this is what happened, this is how we resolved it, this is what our next step is. I think is beautiful for just closing that argument in even their mind, for it to be closed off, and they can pack it away and they know how to deal with it. You just taught them, right? Like, because from an argument there should be lessons, and you just taught them an amazing lesson that, like, hey, we had an argument, disagreement, end of the day we're together, we come back, we figured it out, this is what we're doing. I think that's beautiful. So that's what I would end that on. And then even touching on back to, I guess, right, like me and Matt said, we jump around as humans because we're, kids when it comes down to it. So, we kind of swayed that way, but even bringing it back to marriage, I think the important is, I kind of shared how ours was. I would love, I know we're, it's almost an hour in, but Matt, like your story when it comes to the marriage, like how was that formed? When was a change happen? Because we had a change. Everything else relates. So I guarantee, without even knowing, because I don't know, I guarantee there was a change with you and Jackie that you guys, it was like the aha moment. It was, everything. Like, I would love to hear that aspect.
Freaking love it. And I appreciate you. So one last thing before I tell this is I'm going to mention this, and then for our future episodes, Darren, if you could write this down, I know you're listening. We want to do a father's role in their kid's life. I think that would be super powerful now that I have it on here, like, making sure we hit on that, because it's one of my favorite topics. And then there's going to be a really cool segment in my book called Don't Let Your Wife Become Your Chief Venting Officer. I stole this, by the way, from a mentor about 10 years ago. Or maybe
Robin Duplicate.
Yeah, Robin Duplicate, baby. And it's funny because we allow ourselves, sometimes as entrepreneurs, we come home and we it's not that we shouldn't share, but we vent all the bad stuff that happened, and we expect our wives to be our like punching bag, if you will. And they're going through their own stuff. And then, all women care about, just so most men don't know this, is they care about stability. They want stability. That's all they want. So when you start sharing that employee left or whatever, and I'll get into that in a later episode, but to dive into Ruslan's question. So my wife and I been married for almost 12 years this year. We have 2 kids, 9 and 7. And, I knew I was going to be a dad. Like, it was my dream when I was a kid. And I met my wife actually at one of my best friend's weddings. I'll keep this short and sweet. It's one of my favorite stories, but I do believe God works in mysterious ways. At that time in life, I was actually slowly moving away from having a relationship with God at the time. And that's a whole nother podcast. We'll get into it, but I was at a wedding, and crazy enough, I met his name's Matt as well. We met playing basketball. I love sports, and we were playing basketball, and he's really good. And I'm really good too. I can drop some 3-pointers, and it's awesome. But he, so at his wedding, so we became like stepbrothers, kind of like me and Ruslan. We became best friends very quickly, and like, we're talking pretty fast, within about 3 months. And his wife is Cheryl. If you do listen to this, you're amazing. But she's, she's kind of a driver. She's a hardcore. She's a planner. She had their wedding planned for 2 years later already. They were both finishing up. He was finishing grad school, and I met him, and she was just starting her teaching career, but she already had their wedding planned. So for anybody to get onto that wedding list, it was tough. Okay. And this is a God thing. So I got on the wedding list because I'm Matt and I'm friendly, and I got in there. Right. And unfortunately, me and Matt had a falling out, like nothing horrible. We just ended up getting really busy, and we stopped talking for about 4 or 5 months. And this is a God thing, because if this never happened, me and Jackie would have never been connected. He came over. He calls me out of nowhere like 6 months later. He's like, "Hey, Matt, I miss you, dude. We should catch up." He comes over to my house, which I was living in Champaign, Illinois, down at University of Illinois. And he comes over and we're just hanging out. And we realize, like, obviously, I don't know if anybody has this, but when you get with someone, it's as if you've been together for the last, like, it's not like there was 6 months. He's like, dude, you need to come to my wedding. I'm like, okay. So he gets me back on the list. I go to the wedding. This is where it gets crazy. Go to the wedding, and I'm there, and I'm sitting at his table of his friends, and Jackie's at the other table. I didn't know her at this time. It's at Cheryl's because she was a sorority sister of Cheryl, and it's all her and her sorority sisters. And I know one of her sorority sisters really well. Okay, I met her in college, and she's dating this guy. I forget his name. I think Ben. And Ben is this. I'm gregarious. This guy is like 10x me, so you can only imagine. He's like, Matt, what are you doing at that table? And so Jackie had actually just broke up with whoever she was dating, so she had a seat next to her. And so I switched tables, sat next to her, and we're chit chatting. Everyone's getting to know each other, and I'm getting to know Jackie. She's in this beautiful red dress. I still remember it to this day, like beautiful, beautiful red dress. And she had a peanut allergy. She no longer has that. She had a nut allergy. She no longer has it. It's cool how childbirth, we'll get into another day, but childbirth got rid of her nut allergy. But I love sugar, and dessert comes out, and she goes, hey, Matt, do you want my dessert? I didn't know she had a nut allergy. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm in love. And I'm like, she gave me her desserts, and now I have 2 desserts. I'm pumped. So here's the truth. So what happened is we didn't like hit it off. It wasn't like love at first sight or anything in that sense. Like we weren't like, oh, whatever. I actually get up from the table. I only came to that portion of the wedding. That was my thought, because I wanted to go see my parents because I was back in Chicago. And I get in my car. I leave. Get in my car. This is crazy. Get in my car. And this was before GPS was popular. And I drive out of the parking lot, make two turns, and I end up at a dead end for some random reason. And I'm sitting there, and no joke, I go, you know what? I just want to go back. Why am I going to see my parents? Let me go back, and I just want to dance. Literally, I just want to dance tonight. So, and I like dancing. I'm not the greatest dancer, but I will dance pretty aggressive, and it's awesome. So we go back. So I go back to the wedding, and this is crazy because if I would have left and never hit that dead end, then I would have never returned. So I returned. I asked Jackie to dance with me. We danced the night away, and this is like the perfect example of our relationship. I'm thinking I'm about to put the moves on this woman, man. I'm gonna dip her. I'm gonna give her a kiss on the dance floor. This is gonna be powerful. So I'm dipping her. I'm doing all these dance moves. We're juking, all that stuff. And Jackie's gonna hate that I just said that, but and. So Armageddon, the song from the movie Armageddon, it's like, don't want to close. I think it's an Aerosmith song. Don't want to close your eyes comes on, and I'm going, heck yeah, baby. Like I'm about to, this is going to be great. And she looks at me, and I think this is the most romantic thing in the world. She goes, oh my goodness, this song is so corny. So I look at her, I go, you're right, it's so corny. But long story short, and this is like the perfect example. So we wrap up the night, and there's some after party or whatever, and we exchange numbers. Okay. So I'm gonna speed forward because I just gave but that's my favorite story of how we met. It's amazing. So, and again, all God, because if I didn't go back, we would have never met. We wouldn't have technically Nolan and Caroline and all that. But so she, so I get her number. I wasn't the like, you got to wait 3 days or none of that. I was like, whatever. So I texted her. I'm like, hey, that was awesome. You want to go out? You want to go out? You want to go out? So I invite her out to our first date. And I was selling copiers, and I had 2 phones, 2 Blackberries. So, I'm walking in, I was doing pretty well at the time. I was young. My first sales job, I was making over 6 figures. I thought I was just badass. So I walk in, I got these 2 phones. We go to this like pasta for lunch because at the time I was building a side business, and I was busy. I was working like 80, 90 hours a week, maybe more. And so my evenings were pretty much, we would have to get together at like 10 o'clock. And I was like, I can't take this girl on a first date at 10 p.m. So she agreed. She was still in grad school getting an engineering degree. And so we go out, and I couldn't, this is again before technology. Facebook was there, but I couldn't remember how she looked.
So not just feeling it.
Dude, So I'm like, maybe she's ghosting me. So I got hungry. So I went and bought my pasta because it was like one of those you order. So I bought my pasta and then she actually got in line and I didn't even really notice her. And then I text her and she's like, oh, I'm here. I bought. And so for this day, she won't let me live it down that she had to buy her own meal on the date. So I'm a rookie.
Man, don't do that. Don't do that.
I'm a rookie. So fast forward, we date. I was busy, guys. I was running around, and not that my wife, but I was running a different type of business. I was making crazy decisions. I was driving all over the country trying to build a company and recruit and do all this stuff. And she broke up with me, actually. So she broke up with me 6 months in. And I remember she went on a trip with her mom to France, comes back, and the text messages, they weren't as sweet anymore. They were like, short. She comes back. She's like, hey, Matt, I really like you, but I don't really think this is going to be the right fit. So she breaks up with me. Okay. And so now I go 3 months single, whatnot. And again, this will age me. I pop her an email. It's 3 months later. I just write her. I was like, hey, and I got to see if I could find the email one day. But I basically just like, hey, I miss you. I hope you're doing awesome. Would you be willing to grab sushi with me? So, because I knew she loved sushi. So we and I also at that point I had yo-yoed with my weight. I had lost like 30 pounds in that 90 days or whatever. So I was looking pretty damn good. And so she comes to sushi, and then realistically we start dating again. And pretty much we were like, yep, this is within 3 months. We were like, yeah, this is it. We get married and all that. But now to finish this, because we're already at like an hour and 5 minutes on this, the biggest thing is that if you guys meet my wife, a couple of things you're going to realize. She grew up in a household where her mom was the leader of the home. And that's not a judgment to you, Peter. If you ever listen to this, I love you. But he went off and did what you're supposed to do in that generation. He went off and made money. Okay. And he was, great father, by the way. He was a great dad. But her mom handled the finances of the house. So she managed the money. She was pretty much the decision maker on most things. And so my wife thought that was her example, and there's no judgment to this, but when she and I started dating and getting married, I was a hardcore driver, but I was also like, hey, if you want to handle all that,
that's easy. Right?
Go ahead, honey. I'll go be the entrepreneur and you be the stability. But here's the biggest learning lesson I had, and I'll wrap this story up, that I had with my wife, and I hope this helps a lot of men out there, is my wife, even though she put up that front, that was because that was her example. She despised running the finances. Oh, yeah. And transparently with that, we actually, not because she's bad at money, but we did not set ourselves up very strongly when we were young, because I wasn't even paying attention. I just was out there making money, and I'm like, we're good. We can do our travel and do all this stuff. And I took over the finances about, I think 4 years ago now, like completely took them over, where she doesn't even know. I mean, obviously every family's different, just so everyone's aware. Okay. But I took it off her plate. She doesn't know what our credit cards look like. She doesn't know what's in our savings account unless she goes, well, she can see the savings account. All she cares about is stability. And if I knew this earlier in my, if we would have had this discussion, and we would have set the expectations, I would have just ran the money from earlier in our marriage. And here's the irony of it all. Because she was managing this one component of our life that, again, guys, do whatever makes sense, but I recommend as a man, you handle it. Take it off your wife's plate. She should not be the one budgeting she should not be the one managing your budget. Now, again, if you're horrible with money, gentlemen, learn how to be better, but also, sure, do whatever makes sense. I want to make sure you're aware of it. But my wife wanted stability, and she wanted me to step up and be the man of the house. And just that one act, now a lot of other things, but that one act completely changed, because I had a massive financial loss. I talked about that before. And honestly, we were at that time, we never brought the D word up. We never said it out loud, but we both felt it, that we had young kids at home. I had just lost a significant amount of money. She had to continue working. And here's the crazy part. Because she was managing the finances, she had so much stress from it that was unnecessary stress. She wasn't allowing herself to be the feminine role in the house. And so this is very personal, but that was a big challenge for us. And so I took over the finances. I also realized, Matt, it's time to grow up. Don't get me wrong. I have a blast in my life and I'm still a kid, but the hardest thing for me was I'm like, okay, I have to man and run this house. Like, it's my family, my wife. She wants me to step up and be the leader of the family. And I remember making that transition, and it no joke. I feel way more love. She gets to be more of a woman. I know that sounds weird. Our sex life went through, and I know that's personal. Sex life went through the roof. She's able to be more of a mom, and all she cares about, are we okay financially? That's so in my quarterly meetings, I just give her she doesn't even want to know. I just say, hey, honey, this is what we have in our bank account. This is what our investments are doing. And listen, we're good. Hey, I'm making these couple investments coming up. I just want to prep you. It's going to look like our bank account's going to drop a little bit, but just know that it's coming back. And hey, these are how the businesses are doing. Fingers crossed they don't fall off a cliff. Life is good. That trip you want to do, you've already planned 2 of them. Can you hold off on the 3rd one until August, please? Right. So, it's completely changed. And I know there's so much more we could go into, Ruslan, but I'll tell you right now, I'm closer with my wife than I've ever been. I truly believe she's my best friend. We are lockstep with our kids now, and nothing's perfect, obviously, but she's, I've now been able to rebuild enough to where she can step away from a very strong 6-figure income. And that's the challenge. I always joke with her. I'm like, damn it, honey, why'd you have to make so much money? Cause I had to replace that. And I'm we would have had that replaced back in the day, but that happens. And, transparently though, God knew that if I would have got the money back then, we probably would have divorced even with the money. So I needed time to mature, and I needed time to become the man she needed. And now we're way more, way stronger than we've ever been. And we also, to your point earlier in the call, Ruslan, we now have our roles, and we know who's wearing what hats in the household. And before, we were stepping on each other's toes. We didn't know who's wearing what hats. I just delegated all the finances to her, and it really stressed her out. And I didn't know that was the case. And that's because I never sat with her and said, hey, do you enjoy this? And she absolutely hated it. So I'm going to stop talking now, but we can kind of go into wrap up. But any feedback on that?
I can't drop the mic because it's on a stand, so I'll give it a little boom, boom. Yeah, Matt, you hit it. I think, putting it all together, I wrote a couple things down, and there's a part of your story when you started and how you and Jackie met and things. I know there was another part that you've told me in private, and I know you're fine sharing it because I've heard you share it in rooms, that if I remember correctly, she called her friend and said, is Matt for real? And yeah. I think that's, even again, just a quick little thing, even when I met Matt for the first time, it's in Chicago, it's just this dude that's all happy and the world's going to be perfect when there's wars out there and everything. My first thought was, is he for real, or is he just a sales dude? So that was just, a small little thing that I think is super important, because Matt is for real. I mean, if you guys get to know him through the podcast in real life, he is for real. This is who he is. And now hearing the story, because that's the first time I heard it, like you said, right, there was a point, and like you said, what was it? It never came up, but it was on everyone's mind, the D word, right? It was on the mind, and you guys were able to figure out, wait a second, the shift was finances has to get out of it, right? I have to take over. I have to grow up, whatever, right? I mean, insert whatever word you want into there, and you taking that on freed up, which then, like you said, the notes that I have here is, I think as men in the relationship and stuff, it's okay to say no. Not, hey, we took 2 trips. You want to continue having sex. So you're like, yeah, book the 3rd trip. It's okay to be like, no, let's wait until August, because, right, you got to manage the finances. You can't live in this world where the Amex is just going to go through. I hate to tell it to you. If you come back from vacation and the trip finances wise follows you, you didn't take a vacation. Like, and that's very important. So like I have that, just saying no is okay in marriage, but have a reason for it. Don't be a dictator, but have a reason for it. And again, they can say no, your wife can say no too. So I have that written out. And then like you mentioned, right, when you took that stress off of Jackie, like everything improved, right? The sex life improved, everything. And I know a lot of guys are sitting and that's a struggle, right? I mean, with how many people struggle with porn, with how many women use that as a weapon, they weaponize it. So I do think it is an important factor. Like for me, even when you were talking, I think the biggest thing that aha moment, we what works for everyone, right? Some people have it, I mean, schedules, everything. Some people have this, something. For us, that was our constant thing that just reconnects the marriage every single time. And you touching on it, when you remove the stress, they want security. Trust me, everything else falls in line. Don't be like, hey, until I get that, I'm not going to be a better dad. I'm not going to be a better husband. Do your part. I'm telling you, the what you want out of it, and most men, that's what they struggle with. It will happen and it will come. And a little side note, I mean, yeah, I probably shouldn't, but I'm just saying it will come, so that's all I gotta say on that end.
I love it, man. I appreciate it, Ruslan. And just to kind of land the plane here, because the biggest thing that Ruslan just kind of recapped, and I think it's really important, is just sit down with, like, if you haven't done this in a while, just get with your wife one-on-one, remove phones, and just figure out, ask, like, just be transparent. Like, what do you need from me and how can we adjust this? And here's the truth, guys. Sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable. Like, oh, yeah. I didn't have to manage the finances in my family for five or whatever years it was before I took them over. And I liked it. I got to just wake up and be the fun. Like I was the fun dad before the kids came. I was just like, yeah, we're going to go do this. And then my wife had to sometimes be the opposite. She sometimes had to be like, hey, Matt, we can't do that. And that's not and again, I don't want to get too biblical here, but that's not the proper way it should be done in the household. So, but to wrap this up real quick, one thing you mentioned is one other big change for me. And we live in a world, in a society where it's maybe not even pornography per se. It's just Instagram. It's just social media, right? Your algorithm has kicked in, and they're showing you whatever pictures that are coming up. And here's the truth. This is vulnerable for me. That happened to me. And I've had to now go in and control my algorithm like a crazy man. And I catch myself sometimes still, right? And here's what you got to realize is, especially once you get in the 15 years of marriage, 12 years of marriage, 20 years of marriage, right? Your wife has, especially if you have kids, she has given her body to have children, and she is the mother of your mother of your kids. And honestly, I try, I'm not perfect, but I try my best to not look at things as if I can. Again, I'm not perfect. I want to make sure every man listening, I'm not perfect at this, but it completely changed how I even view my wife. Right. And I just think of how amazing God is, and the fact that we were blessed to have amazing, healthy kids. And she's done these things for me. And we didn't even get to, I know we're already past time. We can do another episode on this, but I mean, she went through some she went through some stuff with me. And what I mean by that is she's a godsend. Like, she has been my stability and allowed me to be an entrepreneur most of my career because she had a stable job. And if she didn't have that, then there's multiple times we would have went completely broke or bankrupt. And there was that season when I lost all my money. She was literally for 3 months. She was our stability. Like, I had to go rebuild, and I cannot wait to give her everything she's ever wanted, because she never gave up on me. And, and that's, again, when you're looking for a partner, guys, like, truly, again, don't get me wrong, sex is important. Being attracted to each other is important, but just know when you're 80 years old, you're probably neither going to be very attractive. And, it's going to be, have they become your friend? Have they become your close friend? Now, again, you still need men outside of your wife, and we'll talk about that in later episodes. But note, though, that I love my wife. She's my best friend, and, she knows all the bad stuff about me. She knows all the good stuff, and she's still with me along for the ride. So to kind of land the plane real quick. Oh, go ahead, Ruslan. Go ahead, Ruslan.
I gotta put this in.
Yeah.
Like I said, right, when you weren't in charge of the finances and it went down, you didn't do the blame game and be like, hey, it's your fault. You like all these vacations and things. You took it on, which I think is very important. A lot of men might do that, and you would have never even got the redemption story of Matt managing the finances if Jackie wasn't able to. And I know some men, right, pride takes over, things like that. So their wife doesn't have a 6-figure income that you can fall back on for 3 months. And as everyone knows, the main reason for divorce is finances. That is the number one topic. So when you have that, and when you say God sent and an angel, it's 100% true, right? Like during that time, if the devil had his way, you would have never had the redemption story, the beautiful marriage, the 12 years, because the finances would have killed it, and it would have been no one's fault. It would have just been, hey, it just didn't work out. So I think that's a huge thing to touch on, right? Because you guys were able to weather that storm together is now why, right, everything else is blossoming and blooming. And I think that's super important to touch on. Most guys won't, like, I know I come from a Slavic kind of background. You don't have that cushion. So if you don't figure it out before that storm comes, sometimes you don't make it through it. And I think the finances kills it, which I think, right, I know me and Matt agree on that. I think the finances, the money is the easiest thing we can replace, right? You went down and recovered tenfolds of what you were. You can't recover that relationship if it breaks all the way. Some people get remarried back to the same person, but just know, take it over before the storm comes. I think that would be the biggest thing I would just add to that.
Freaking love it, dude. Man, we could talk for another hour on this. So we'll wrap this one up. I'm going to rub this beautiful bald head real quick. So
let me rub it.
Get it. It's a little sweaty, but man, this is so good, Ruslan. It's funny. Oh, this is going to be awesome. But all right, guys, who's listening, Lighthouse Brotherhood, we'll have some announcements coming soon. We're excited. Obviously, we're going to be building a group of men where we're going to be talking about these important topics, and we're going to be, obviously the goal is not for a wine session necessarily. When I use the word wine, we're not going to cry to each other and then not solve it.
No.
We're going to come together. We're going to talk it through. We're going to help each other, and we're going to help hopefully save some marriages, hopefully save some households. Hopefully we're going to be able to help you and your wife be closer. And we're not, again, no idolization. We're not idols here. We're just two dudes hanging out, and we've lived through some of these, and we're still learning, and that's really important. So to land the plane, don't let your wife be a chief vetting officer. She's going to be, if she's the mother of your kids, again, it's awesome. Ruslan hit on a lot of this. Like, we'll talk later in future scenarios, but again, make sure you have some sort of argument strategy. Like if it happens, especially if you're emotional or your wife's emotional, like how do you guys handle it? And get a brotherhood, right? Doesn't have to be the Lighthouse Brotherhood, but get with some men. But Ruslan, you want to close us up, and then we'll hang up on these guys?
Yep. Like I said, on the marriage, most important decision you're going to make. But aside from that, you'll make that decision. If you run it yourself, that's why the brotherhood is important. You're going to need to bounce ideas. You're going to need that. But with marriage, I'll end it on, it is your most important decision you are going to make. We all have business partners. Those are hard decisions. This is tenfold. But like I said, when you have the most important decision made, you need a group of guys around that you can build that around, bounce ideas off, improve it. Because at the end, on previous ones we touched on, no one is self-made. No marriage is self-made. No marriage self-fixes. God intervenes. But then the brotherhood and ideas from other men that have been through it, it just puts it all together. And that's how, right? I hope we're in 10 years, I'm celebrating my 25th. Matt's at 22 going to be. Kids are we have grandkids, and it's going to be a beautiful thing. And if it's at 35, I hope I'm that guy that, like Matt said, at 80, and I'm like, I've been married for 60 years. That's the goal. I hope that's the goal for everyone. So that's where I'll end it.
Freaking love it. Well, let's end on that, guys. Thanks for joining us. We love you guys. Obviously, we have so much in our hearts and our minds we want to share. So keep looking out for future episodes. And we are so pumped to have you. Welcome to the Lighthouse Brotherhood. See you guys later.